Okay, good evening everyone, and welcome to the next of our webinars that have been taking place online. This evening the topic is pitch positioning for referees. So my name is Lynn Savage, I'm National Development Manager with Ladies Football. I'll be joined tonight by Vinnie Whelan, who's our National Development Officer for Ladies Football, and we're really delighted to have Stephen McNulty, who a lot of people will know the name as one of our national referees throughout the last number of years, taking a lot of top games. And I think webinars like this, it's great to have the experience of our national referees to actually add to it. So we'll be delighted that Stephen will be coming in a lot of this tonight. So as usual, feel free to use the Q&A to ask any questions that you might have throughout the webinar. Vinny will be monitoring the questions, so he'll ask any questions to Stephen. We're going to get everything directed to Stephen tonight. And also there might be times where we ask you just to type in the chat function. But any questions, throw them in the Q&A and we'll get to them. And we'll give you an opportunity at the end to fire in some questions as well. What we would say is tonight's very specific topic, it's positioning. So I know people might have questions on other topics, but they're for other nights and other webinars. If you can't hear at any stage, just please feel free to leave the webinar and join back in, no problem at all. So we're going to get started. Just to let you know that from registering on the course, you'll see the notice there on screen. It's just in relation to, we have your details just to send out, mainly in regards to webinars. It's an evaluation of each of these so we can try and make things better. So that's what we're trying to do with all our webinars. So the aims of tonight is to focus on referee positioning on the pitch during kickouts, general play and free kicks. So really at all times. And being in the correct position, it builds a referee's confidence, which is really important for all referees, and it helps with better decision making. So Stephen's going to share a lot of his practical experience as to how that did help him build confidence, feel better in his decision making, and I think that's going to add to the webinar as we go through it. The agenda, as we said, the kickouts we look at first. We look at general play, then we'll move on to free kicks, 45s, the advantages of good positioning, and then a little bit on self-evaluation, because we're very quick to evaluate everyone else on the pitch, but do we actually evaluate ourselves as referees? So a tiny little bit on that, and we promise we won't keep you all night. It's a fairly swift webinar, but hopefully loads of content to help you out. So before we start, if you're being honest, and Vinny's going to throw a poll open now in a second, how much game preparation goes into thinking about your positioning? So you pack your bags, you read your rule book, you do everything else, but how much game preparation goes into thinking about positioning before your game? So if you want to select 100%, 75, 50, or 25. And
going in thick and fast there, Lynn. Seems everybody's voting, everybody's getting involved in this one. We nearly have a full house of votes at this stage, so thanks very much everybody for your engagement there. And we pretty much do have, there we go, 100% of the people here have engaged in our first interaction. So thanks very much everybody for that. So the results are in, and 30% of the participants here this evening are on 25%. So they only think about their positioning 25% of the time. So 33%, 50% of the time it's 33% of our participants. 30% or 75% of the time it's 30%. But a really telling factor here is that only 7%, 100% of the time for your preparation goes into your positioning.
Perfect, thanks Vinny. And that's great to see. Even if you look at it from there's 37% or above 50% at the time, which is good in relation to that. We look at it that way also, so that's a positive in relation to it. So that's really what we want to see tonight, is hopefully after tonight we'll make you think a little bit more about your positioning, that more and more people get to that 75, 100% hopefully by the end of it. And Stephen will share, I suppose, the percentage, not putting him under pressure now, this percentage of time that he spends in relation to thinking of a positioning also. So to get into this, we're going to look at kickouts first. So all we wanted to do in the chat, so you'll see we're going to keep you busy on this tonight and keep you interactive. What do you think are some of the key rules you need to remember in relation to kickouts? So if you throw a few of them into the chat function there, and Vinny's going to read just 2 or 3 of them out to see some of the main ones that's coming in.
Okay, straight away, we have Omar. Thanks, Omar. 13 meters after wide, 20 meters after score. Niall, 13 meters for a wide ball. Coming in thick and fast. Going to try and keep up with the folks. Thank you very much for your engagement. Did the ball cross the 20-meter line from Eamon? Kelly, ball must cross the 20-meter line. Kevin, distance from the ball. Niall, again, 20 meters for a score. Brian, ball past the 20-meter line to cone. Leo, 20 meters, sorry. Ronald, all players outside the 21 before kickouts can be taken. Still coming in. 20 meters for a score. Kevin, outside the 35 for a score.
Okay, so plenty of them coming in there, Vinny, which is great to see.
In, yeah.
And they're still coming in. Well, at least we know. We're hoping you don't have the rule books beside you. These are all in the head for everyone. So some of the main ones there in relation to the kickouts, and we won't read it word for word. I think most of these have been covered in your chat there. The ball may be kicked from the hands or off the ground from the 13-meter line directly in front of the goal post for a kick out from a goal after a wide in all competitions. So that's just in relation to what the kick out's from. All players except the kicker and the goalkeeper should be outside the 20-meter line and at least 13 meters from the ball until it's kicked. And actually I was watching one of the games at the weekend, and it was interesting because a lot of the times the players don't know that they can't come in the line, but actually the two players stood outside the 20-meter line waiting to see when it come in. So it shows you that coaching wise they're starting to learn about this as well in relation to when they can actually go in across the line. So the ball must cross the 20-meter line before being played by another player. So where another player offends, a free should be awarded to the opposing team on the 20-meter line opposite to where the foul occurred. So if the attacker went inside before it, then it's a free to the defending team, and the same the other way around. So as I said, that's something we're trying to get through to our coaches as well, to make sure that they know. Where an opposing player stands nearer to the goal line than the 20-meter line, the defending side should be awarded a free out, as we mentioned. The kick out should be taken from the 20-meter line in front of the goal post after a score. And again, all players except the kicker and the goalkeeper outside the 20-meter line and at least 13 meters from the ball until it's kicked. And Stephen, you might come in on that because I know there's sometimes a bit of a mix-up in relation to the D. So it's not actually the D at all, it's the 13 meters. I don't know if you want to share some experience on that one.
Yeah, like the D actually doesn't exist in ladies football. It was the D was implemented from a GAA that it was 13 meters you took away from the penalty from a 20-meter kick out. But it's good to use, you know, as a guide, that is 13 meters from the 20-meter line. But it's not needed. So if a player is technically inside the D, they can't receive the ball after it was kicked unless they were outside it and came in. But they can go in once the ball is kicked, you know. But it's a good judge just to use, as it's a 13-meter distance, but it's actually not part of our rules.
Perfect, thanks, Stephen. It's good just to share that one. The player then taking the kick out may play the ball more than once before any other player plays it, provided she does not take it into her hand. So in other words, if she kicked it and it didn't go out across the 20-meter line, she can run out again and put her boot to it and kick it over the 20-meter line, but she can't pick it up again. So that's the difference there. So as I said, it is something involved in a lot of our coach education, so it's filtering down to the players as well, but really important for yourselves as referees to make sure that you're aware of that rule. So for the kick out, I'm going to show you some little videos here, and Stephen's going to chat through some of them so he can tell me how many times he wants them replayed, etc. And then we're going to show you a slide with where it is. So here's one of the videos, and I suppose for the first time, just keep an eye on where the referee is the big thing we're looking for here. So we're not worried in any of these videos about did you think it was a foul or did you think it was the right place. Everything's about the referee's position.
Okay, on that instance there, what I would generally do on a kick out is I would position myself on the 45, either to the left or the right hand side of the goal, and that gives me two good advantage. One, if the ball goes short, you can get in 10-15 meters. If the ball goes long, you can make that 10-15 meter gain, and then it's just judging whether from the keeper's positioning. If the keeper's going for her right, you would tend to go to your left. If the keeper goes to the left of the goal, you would tend to go to your right to give you that better positioning. And what it does here, by positioning yourself on the 45 for a short kick out too, you can get in as well to see that the ball does cross the 20-meter line. If I was further out on the 65, it would be very hard to call, particularly in club games where this time of the year or the early time of February, March, there's probably a good chance there's not going to be a white line very visible because of the weather. So it's trying to get a good advantage of seeing that, make sure that ball crosses the 20-meter line. On these occasions, I've got 4 umpires and I've got 2 lines people to help me out. But as we know, 90% of the games we referee, we don't have that.
So Stephen, you're happy with where the referee is in this one in relation to the 45-meter line? So you can see a clear description on that one.
Yeah.
There's another one here, so I'm going to let Stephen take on this one too.
And this one here, I was probably too close to the middle. You know, what happened here, because the keeper stood in the middle, I was a guess, do you go left or right? So what I did is I stood in the middle myself, but at all times you should probably go to the left or to the right of the D. So because 9 times out of 10, the ball is going to go wide. I had the positioning right on the distance just before the 45. So I was able to make that run towards the play, and also being diagonal gives you the opportunity to see any infringements. But probably I was too close to the middle on that, where I should have been maybe to my right to where the ball had gone.
Brilliant.
Have you any questions about those 2 videos? Anybody want any clarification or challenge me on my position, or think, you know, what they would have done anything differently?
And we can show the next slide as well, Stephen, just while we're waiting on anything to come in there.
So basically, you take up a position as said off center, ready to move forwards or back, depending on the power of the kick. But I think, you know, if you're in a situation in a game where after 15 minutes, you will see the pattern that the goalkeeper is going with. Is she going short or is she going long? Is she majority going to, you know, right to hit the number 5, or is she going left to hit the number 7? That will always give you a good indication, and sort of you can judge the rest of the game from that, from what you've seen in the first 5 or 6 kicks from the goalkeeper or the fullback, whoever's taking the kick. But it's always been not being caught on the hop, you know, giving yourself that opportunity to make that 20-meter run, 15, 20-meter run, and not having to do anything quicker than that, shorter than that, sorry. So being able to act quickly, learn to move and read the kickouts, and be in a good position to spot has the ball across the 20-meter line.
Very good. Vinny, has anything come in there just on those?
Yeah, just one come in there, Stephen. What distance from the halfway line would you take up once the ball actually lands in a player's hands?
Well, what I would tend to do is I would stay within the 45 area, moving maybe if the ball reached the player on the 45, then you'd make that run then towards the halfway line. But I wouldn't really wouldn't transgress towards the halfway line until you see where the ball is going. Because if you think it's going to go long and it goes short and you've already made that run forward, you're double your distance, it's going to have to come back. So I wouldn't progress to the 45-meter line until you see the player has received the ball.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen. Any more there, Vinny? Are we?
Move on, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now we're going to look at general play, because obviously these are a number of different areas. So that's the kickouts in relation to it, and you'll have an opportunity to ask more questions. Don't worry throughout it. So don't worry on any of that. But again, we're going to throw to the chat to yourself. What do you think is the best positioning to be in during general play? So we're going to get you to think a little bit for a second. You want to throw them in the chat and Vinny will read them out.
Okay, starting to come in there. Thanks, guys. Sun side of the pitch from Kevin there. Niall keeping up with the play alongside the play. Another one parallel with the play, Leo, either channel just off the right or left, depending on where the ball is. From Brian there, 10 to 15 yards away from the play. Noel diagonal to the play. Kelly diagonal runs with the play. Eamon with the sun on your back if it's sunny. Nice and practical there. Not too near the play from Maura. Frank, where I have a side view lateral of the ball in play, and Jackie at an angle. So lots of practical ideas there coming in. Thanks everybody for your ideas. Omar, side on view. I think centered if lower level club and more out to the wings in a higher level. That's what I've noticed.
Okay, so a lot of side stuff and lateral, I suppose, is what has come in for a lot of those. So Stephen, I might take you in on this as well, just in relation to general play, and then we'll show a few videos too.
Yeah, I think again, as we were saying there, like you move parallel to the play and with the side on, so you can see the players. And always think of a wide angle lens, run diagonally across the pitch to reduce the distance, and aim to get to the sidelines of the pitch and try to get inside the 13-meter line as possible. That's probably one of the biggest criticisms we get as part of our assessments, is that we stayed outside the 20-meter line. You just run 20 meter and stop. There'll be a lot of critical calls to be made inside the 13. So it's trying to get in there side on and from a diagonal run to that. I would try and get a side on as much as possible, but also to try and run at a diagonal angle. I heard some people put up that they may get ahead of the game. That can be difficult. You get a better view side on or slightly 5 to 10 meters behind the player to see what infringements are being made.
Brilliant, Stephen. And I know these next few videos are going to allow you to show some of this in action. So I'll show this one a few times, and people can keep an eye on the referee, and then Stephen will chat through it all as well.
So in this one here, I'm actually playing advantage for an infringement on the Galway player. And again, I was probably 15 meters behind, could have been a wee bit closer. But again, I had a diagonal view in of the play. Again, you don't really want to get much closer than 10 to 55 meters, because you're probably going to block a pass or you're going to block sight of someone, and all you're going to be doing is get a bit of criticism from the player. But it's just try and get as close as possible with a diagonal run to see what infringements are happening. Perfect.
Thanks, Stephen. I'm going to show you another one now. And again, Stephen will chat through this, but if everyone keeps an eye on the referee. Oh.
So we see here, Barry is running, probably to the left of the players, has a good vision to see what's going on to his right, and he's probably that 5 meter run behind, so he can actually see from a diagonal point what's going on, and he's perfect to see the charge there on the player. Are there any questions regarding those videos?
And I was just going to ask you there, Stephen, obviously, as you mentioned previously, there can be comments about a referee just running up and down the middle of the pitch. Obviously, from a situation like this, it's very different because the play is going directly down the middle of the pitch. So I think that's a little bit different, as you say, in relation to general play.
Yeah, I mean, Barry could have done one or two things. He could have got to the right to the sideline and looked in from the left, but there's no criticism of where he was, because the saying the play was in the middle. So he had two options there. He could have ran diagonally right and then looked over to his left-hand side from the wide angle, or he continued as he is, and he probably felt that he was probably in the middle of the pitch, and going for any further right would have maybe put him behind play. So he did the right
so that's where referees don't have to be afraid in some cases to be in the middle of the pitch when it's there in the middle of it. I think, have we a few comments there?
Yeah, Stephen, so just one come in there from Frank. What did you mean by aim to get sidelines of pitch, ?
Yeah, so for example, if you have the sideline of the pitch, okay, so if you're running up the pitch, run diagonally to the sideline rather than run straight at the sideline, because what's going to happen is if you run straight to the sideline, you're going to be behind the play further, where if you run diagonally to the sideline, there's two things that will happen. One, you've shortened your distance to get up a play, and secondly, then you're getting a side-on view of the actual play.
Very good. Thanks, Stephen. Any more there, Vinny?
That's it for the time being. Yeah.
Perfect.
Right, and just going back to Lynn's comment there about, I think the biggest frustration to players and supporters is seeing a referee run up and down the middle of the pitch. And I think we'll cover it on evaluation, you know, how there's tricks there to evaluate how you did and how to improve it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stephen. So we've covered kickouts, we've covered general play, and so I know we're getting through them fairly rapid, but it's great because in the videos you can see it. So free kicks obviously can be from a number of different positions, but we're going to throw it into the chat again. We don't want to make life easy for you at home. What is the best positioning to be in for free kicks? So again, if you want to throw it in the chat.
Emma, straight in there. Off centre. Thanks, Emma. Everybody's typing furiously, I can see. Aaron, edge of the large square on the 13. Kevin, off centre, facing the kicker. Another one has come in there, 10 to 15 metres from where you think the ball will land. Frank, 10 to 15 metres in front to either side. Noel, 20 metres away, diagonal to the kicker. Omar, to the side, kick coming into you, side view to where the ball may land or where the player action is likely to be. Podrick is behind the kicker for a score. Maura, depends on where the free is from, but away from the kicker. Brian, always find directly behind, I think that's always stand directly behind the free taker, especially when there's no umpires.
Brilliant. So everyone's keeping Vinny good and busy there tonight with the chats, which is good to see. So for the free kicks, and obviously there can be a free kick close to the, as people have mentioned, it depends where it is. So Stephen, I'm going to bring you in here because there's obviously two scenarios in this in relation to a large rectangle and a small rectangle just on the diagram. So I'll let you chat through these.
Yeah, and I think some of them have covered it off in their comments there. Free kicks are likely to reach the large rectangle. So again, take a position off centre, giving yourself a lateral view, looking along the 13-metre line and well positioned to judge the fouls in that area. Free kicks that are likely to reach the small rectangle, take up a position off centre, giving yourself a lateral view of players, looking along the front of the line of the small rectangle and are well positioned to judge it. So you see there from the top one is, you know, you're going to the right of the free kick, and the bottom one you're going to the left of it, and it just gives you that good angle, and you're not going to be blocked by the kicker, because if the kicker moves after the kick, at least you're away from them to get a better angled view. And then also too is if you're in there, you're better to call square ball, 45-metre or a wide when you're in those positions.
Brilliant. And as you said, you're not always lucky to have your umpires maybe at some of your club games and stuff, so that helps you out for your own position in relation to that. And we've a few videos, so we'll do the same again. We'll put Stephen under a bit of pressure.
Before we go ahead, just one in from Omar. Just on the freeze, he said close to the square at the end of a 2-point game. He learned the hard way last year. Don't stand too far off the action of the line, or the lines aren't visible. Mm-hmm. So just that's, I suppose, from some of these experiences as well, which is brilliant, a brilliant addition.
Perfect, thanks, Vinny. So Stephen, we'll go over to you again and we'll show a few different free kicks here.
I think the positioning Siobhan takes up here is actually perfect. You know, as you can see, she's going to the right of the kicker. So she's got a good view of both the kicker and the scoring area and the small square. And she's able to check that the 20-metre line wasn't broken from the free kick and able to follow the ball over. So even if she didn't have umpires there, she was in a perfect position to call a 45, a wide, a score, or any infringement penalty or square ball. I know some people said they would maybe stand behind her for that kick, but if you stand 10 metres, 5 metres behind her, you are like 20 metres behind the square. So it's going to be more and more difficult to it. Where Siobhan's actually on the 13-metre line and she's only 8 metres from the square. So it's good to make every call there. It's perfect positioning.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen. And we'll show one a little from a different angle here.
The players are in no hurry. They must be leading. So the referee in this one has gone in strictly opposite the player. I think they should have maybe went a bit further left or a bit further right to see the full angle of the post. They were, luckily, because the ball was played short, they were able to get it up with play. But I think they should have maybe either moved further to the left or further to the right to get a better angle for any infringement that would have happened in there. The other thing I would talk about the referee there was the referee actually ran with his back to the player. So if the player had taken it quicker, the referee wouldn't have been able to see whether the player receiving the ball was within 13 meters or any other infringement that happened. So when you are going to run away from a player in a situation of a free kick or a dead ball, try and run with your back to the opposite direction and you're facing the kicker at all times.
I'm just showing that once more there, Stephen, just so people can see what you were chatting about there.
If she had played that when she received the ball, which she was entitled to do, because she was taking the kick and wasn't taking it any advancing, he wouldn't have seen any infringement that would have happened there. So where we always talk about, positioning and getting to the lines and getting the angles right, I think it's always, at 95% of the time, keeping your eyes on the player and the ball.
Perfect. I think you have a comment in there, Steve or Vinny, have you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're actually great engagement here this evening. One from John, who come in: further away makes it more difficult if the kick is taken short to see the player has kept the correct distance. Can you use the lines person to keep check if it goes short? From Omar then: if you're going to watch the kicker, is the other side of the post not the better place to watch the action from the action in the box? And then from Niall: should the ref not have used his lines person for the free?
Yeah, there's two comments there about lines people, and I think we said this is probably a National League game. I'm not sure whether it's championship or with the flooding around the pitch, I'm guessing a National League game, but I'm not sure whether it's an early championship, a later championship game. 95%, and the same with your own club games, you're not going to have the lines person. Yes, if you did have a lines person there, you would have the lines person marking the free, and then user referee would go on. But as we know, 95% of the time, we're not going to have them. So, and Omar's made a valid point, and I was saying that earlier as well, that, yeah, I think the referee should have moved more to the right, to the center, and had it in an angle vision of the player straight on. I think going ahead of them in the same positioning of the kicker was their incorrect thing to do. He was lucky that it went short, that he was able to react to it, but I think he should have been sitting sort of, I don't know if you can see that in my arrow there. I think he should have maybe standing in that area there of the field. Sorry.
Yeah, so kind of like the diagram we showed on 2 slides previous, Stephen. Yeah. Perfect. Any more there, Vinny, before we move?
Just Niall just said that the ref should have used the same position as Siobhan used in the previous clip.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. So that is in relation to free kicks, and I suppose it's not technically an overall free kick, but a 45. And obviously, remember in ladies football now, it's 2 points if you get it directly over the bar for a 45. So we've yet to see it in this year's championship, but it's not over yet. But I'll switch this one on, and Stephen will chat through it again.
Again, I think the most obvious one there, we just discussed it. The referee ran 20 meters with his back to the ball. That player plays that short there to number 4 on the right, where she makes the run. The referee has no idea what's going on. And again, a point that Omar made, that the referee should have probably moved to where that green number 8 is, and diagonally position should have ran that way. So I think basically to the right of the kicker, where the ball went is really where the referee should have been standing, and he shouldn't have ran 20 meters with his back to the ball, because a lot could have happened during that 20-meter sprint.
And Stephen, on that point, and I know we see it a few times where players are in a rush to get playing, but I suppose, have you advice for referees? Like, obviously you're the person in control of the game, so
yeah, like the simple thing the referee could have done there was saying, look, do not kick the ball until I blow the whistle. So that gives you that 10-second advantage to get to the position you're in. Just say, look, you've taken your time, you can no longer take it quickly, so wait on the whistle till I'm in position, and then make that decision. So at least if you're not running with your back to the ball, if you are running with the back to the ball, sorry, you know that it's not going to be kicked until you get into your position.
Brilliant. Anything
Just
further on that one, Vinny?
Question coming in there from Derek. Can the 45 be taken before the whistle is blown?
No, it's not a free kick. It's not a free kick. So you would actually say to the player, on my whistle. Yeah.
So that helps you with that bit of time too, Stephen.
Yeah, the free kick can be taken quickly, as long as it's taken within 5 meters of where the foul happened. But a 45 meter can't. A 45 meter can be brought up 13 meters, but it cannot be taken quickly.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen. So we said we just throw in the 45 there when we were talking about free kicks. I suppose they're all little different videos of, as we said, general play, of frees, of 45. So loads of different scenarios, but there's advantages of good referee position in general. So Stephen's going to chat you through some of these, because these are some practical tips he'd have from his own experience as well.
Yeah, I think like the most common one is your decision making. You're going to be in a good position. You're going to be close to play. I think one of the frustrations you'll always hear from the sideline is, a referee calling a penalty or calling a square ball from the 45 meter line. That's very frustration for players and supporters and management. The advantage, we try and play as much advantage as possible, and being up with play and looking at it for side on from an angle, sees whether an infringement is and whether that player can make an advantage run. Respect from the player and sideline, being up with play. I was commenting earlier, I said, when you're close to the sideline, by calling the free or calling the infringement, at least you're putting a bit of noise away from the sideline, because they can hear what you're actually saying. Where if you're stuck in the middle of the field and you're not signaling properly, they can't hear what the free is from. You don't want to be struck from the ball. You don't want to be hopping the ball. So again, 5 to 10 meters away. We always harp on about our physical fitness. It gives you good positioning, but being able to turn, being able to sprint, practicing, yo-yo, that type of fitness gives you the opportunity to do that 13-20 meter sprint and being able to turn at the same time. You're up with play. You're close to your umpires. You're close to your sideline people, and you're always in talking dialogue with the players. And as I said earlier, when you're standing on the 45 meter for a kick out, you can react whether the ball has gone long, whether the ball's gone short, or whether the ball is turned over.
Just one has come in there from Niall. Positioning is always 10 meters away from the player with the ball 7 diagonal. Okay, might be a typo, with the ball diagonal.
Yeah, I guess that would be on. If you're within 5 to 10 meters of the player on the ball and diagonally or side on, being able to see from the angle what's happening, that is a perfect position to be. If you're directly behind them, you mightn't see whether they took their 5 steps or whether they did a double hop or whether they threw a ball, because their body will block your angle. Where if you're side on, or probably the best way to look at it is a clock. If they're in the middle of the clock face and you're either 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock, that's a good advantage 5 to 10 meters away.
And Stephen, I suppose just while we have you on this, these are all ways, as you said, of the advantage of being in a good position. I'm sure we have some referees on who maybe once found themselves in a bad position and they could nearly knock you for a few minutes afterwards in a game. Have you any tips maybe is there any time you just happened to find yourself in a bad position and then had to reset yourself, and how did you do it?
Yeah, I suppose probably the biggest one would have been the Division 2 National League final. 30 seconds to go. Cavan are a point down, and their full forwards going through on the 13-meter line. I'm probably not close enough to the play because there's too many players in my way. I needed to sort of get further on to be level with her. I was more in a diagonal position, and I actually thought the Cavan full forward was fouled in the small square, awarded a penalty, and I knew by the body language of my umpires it didn't sit right with them. So I spoke to my 2 umpires at the goal side flag, and both of them says that they felt that the Cavan player fell to the ground, and that it wasn't she wasn't fouled by Tipperary. So because I hadn't seen a free by the Cavan player, I cancelled my free kick and hopped the ball on the 20-meter line and cancelled the penalty. Big call, live television, point in it. Cavan scores a point. It's replay. If they score a goal, they win. Two things there. One was making the decision before consultation, and secondly, not being in a good position to make the right call. But if I had been closer to where the goal umpire was, I would have had a far better. I was probably, if again looking at a clock face, if the player was in the center of the clock, I was probably at 11 o'clock, and I needed to be more at 9 o'clock to see what was happening for that call.
And Stephen, in fairness, 2 things that I've taken out of that as well is, 1, the importance of your team being in good positions, which they were, but 2, like, you had the tools to switch on and move on to the next thing a couple of seconds later. So that's where, like, for referees not to be worried if they get themselves in a poor position once, it's finding ways of switching yourself back on again, and away you go.
A couple of comments just come in there. Omar is complimenting you. Incredible fortitude to trust your team. Niall, are there any tips for positioning to try and spot throw balls more clearly?
I think again, it's probably the clock face is a good thing to use. If the player is in the center of the clock face, I think you being at 2 o'clock or the clock above it, 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock gives you that good positioning, as long as you're not a player between you and her, or else being at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, that gives you good positioning. Being ahead of the game too, you will see that, but for you to be ahead to see that, you need to be running backwards, to see it as well, which is difficult to do, particularly in weather we're currently experiencing. But if you can get to between a position of 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock and a position of 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock, they're actually very good angles to see throw balls.
You can all see that clock above you, Stephen, now.
Yeah. Maura wants, how did the game finish? She's just curious.
Tipperary won by the point because I hopped the ball and actually Maloney won it and I blew the whistle. And what was I going to say there? Just to remember that the throw ball in ladies football is just a clear strike is sufficient for us for it to be a legal hand pass. There's no under or anything like that, as long as it's a clear strike. In
any direction, that can be over the head or to the side or anywhere, yeah. And the game is getting quicker, in fairness, so the throw ball can get harder to pick up on, I suppose, at times.
But I would say, like, watching the All-Ireland series this year, at all levels, there's been very few throw balls. There's been very few technical fouls, I would say, at all, in the games I've been watching this year.
Okay, so just to, I suppose, move on to near the end of this, I know people are probably either just in for their tea or getting ready to have it, but self-evaluation, and we mentioned this at the start, is really important, because we are quick after every game to say how a player performed in each position or how the management done in relation to the changes they made or the team they put out. But it's really important as referees and match officials that we self-evaluate also at the end of each game. So it is essential after each game to ensure there's improvements. So getting little things and I don't know if it's an Irish thing where we find it very hard to talk about the good things we do. So it's very important to list the good stuff you've done as well, but then maybe 1 or 2 points that you'd like to improve on for the next game. Look at the performance of players, management and referee, as I said, but how did we actually do? It'll insist to improve with every game. So if you only changed one thing in every game or updated one thing, it'll help you, it'll keep you improving. And it's only a mistake if it's repeated. So if it was a mistake and you didn't learn from it, well then that's something different, you've done it again. But some of the little key questions to ask, and I know I'm going to bring Stephen in on this as well, things like, did I keep up with play? Was I caught out of position? How was my decision making? So some of the little things to really help you, and like the comments is there, watch the tracks you're running is a good tool for self-evaluation. I'm going to let Stephen talk through. He wasn't scribbling on a piece of paper before the webinar, but maybe Stephen, you'll talk through one of the tools you've used.
Yeah, I have a watch with a GPS in it, and I just download it then onto my phone. It connects with an app on my phone, and it tracks what your heart rate was, what distance you ran during the game, and it tracks a map, so it sees, are you getting to the sideline, are you getting inside up to the 13-meter line. And it's good to get that, and I know a lot of referees use it themselves as well, and it is very good. And you don't have to buy, the state-of-the-art Garmin to do it. There's other cheaper models out there, and that a match fee will pay for. So they're well worth doing for self-evaluation. The questions I think Lynn has up there as well, they're very good questions. And if you do have a team with you at any of your games, that's the questions that you should be asking your team. You shouldn't be saying to your team, oh, did I do okay out there? Because they'll all say always yes. You ask them the question, did I keep up with play? What did I miss? Was there stuff I missed? Was my decision making right? Because they're open-ended questions that you want feedback on, so that you can always improve on. And like Lynn has mentioned there, it's only makes a mistake if it's repeated. Last year, Dublin County final, 30 seconds to go. Kilmacud Crokes, and we're 3 points down against Foxrock Cabinteely. Dublin forward went down in the Kilmacud forward went down in the small square. I blew my whistle. I didn't give the penalty. I went and consulted with my umpires and then gave the penalty. So you learn from every game, whatever mistakes that you make, so that you implement them better the next time.
You'll have everybody wanting to know the result of that game now too, Stephen. So before we go, I know we're going to have a few questions will come in, Vinny, in the next slide. But just, I know there's quite a rapid tour there in relation to it. But just after going through that now, how much and will you think going forward, now instead of just packing your kit bag and reading your rules, how much will you actually put a bit more focus into your referee positioning maybe after listening to Stephen tonight?
Okay, coming in thick and fast again. Thanks very much, everybody, for your engagement. And it's very, very different from when we first started this evening, thankfully. So it's completely flip-flopped. In going forward, 56% of our participants said that 100% will go into preparing for their positioning. 38% or 36% said 75% of their time, and 3% said 50, 3% said 25. So it's a complete flip-flop from our first poll at the start.
Very good, thanks, Vinny. So good to see, as we said, this webinar specific on positioning. So I know there's loads of other topics and different rules ones and everything, but it is so important, and you can hear from tonight, even from the comments from everyone, which Vinny was talking about, that getting the right position can affect so many other areas in relation to getting your decision making right. So we're nearly the end of this evening's webinar, but before we do, Vinny, I don't know if there's any more questions there for Stephen, and obviously we're going to ask you to keep your questions to referee positioning because we have other webinars for other topics.
Yeah, just one from Eamon there, just to clarify the D again, because it came up earlier on. I know it's not in the ladies' rules. Is the D a rough guide of the 13 meter, or is the D actually 13 meters?
The D is actually 13 meters from the 20-meter line. And the age of the D would be then 12 meters from the 45. So, you know, from that aspect. So if you were doing a 30-meter shootout, you would take the pole 3 meters in from the age of the D would be a good guide there. So it is. So theoretically, the age of the D is 33 meters from the goal line, 13 meters from the 20-meter.
Perfect. Just waiting on a few more to come in now. I see a few people typing there.
Perfect. You have a few grounds people out with the rulers there, Stephen, making sure they have it right.
John wants to know, have you adapted any positional distances due to COVID?
Not on running and in play, probably just general discussions with mentors, team officials and players. It's just trying to make sure that you have that, 2-meter distance. If you're taking a name or you're explaining a foul or you're cautioning someone from the sideline or you're talking to one of your umpires or sideline officials, it's just try and keep that 2-meter distance with them. But from running, no.
Okay, what's the best position for penalties without umpires or sideline officials?
I would say, side, to the right or to the left of the kicker and probably on line with the small square.
Perfect. Michael, I find being 10 to 15 meters away from the play gives you a good perspective as much as possible anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. No, definitely. As long as you have a good wide angle vision of the players on the ball and the players tackling.
Just to go back to the D again, I know it's not exactly positioning, but Leo wants to know, if a player is inside the D and the keeper kicks the ball out, but not to that player, to another player further out, would you still blow as a player was less than 13 meters away?
No, a player can be less than 13 meters away as long as they don't receive the ball. So theoretically, you could have the fullback standing 2 meters from the goalkeeper on the 20-meter line, being kicked out, and a player outfield could receive the ball. You would tend to push the opponents 13 meters away, so they're not infringing on the kicker, but their own players know.
Perfect, thank you. Ronald wants to know, for club games, as you rarely get umpires, I stand behind free takers to give myself a good view to decide if a score has occurred. Is this okay?
I think if you're comfortable, Ronald, and you've had no issues with it, but a player could run between you and the kicker. A player could run, the kicker themselves could block your vision. I think we go back to the videos. I think Siobhan in the Louth Antrim game had the perfect positioning, and I think that's what you should all aim for.
Perfect.
Any more there, Vinny?
Frank, when play is stopped for injuries, are you entitled to ask what is wrong with the player and how long before you insist on the game restarting? What's your positioning during this?
Well, no, I would never ask what's wrong with the player because it could be something personal. I would always, speak to the physio, say, deal with the player, make sure that I'm probably 5 meters away from the position of the player. But, unless it's a head injury or a serious injury, you play on and you let them have treatment. But probably maybe 5 meters is a good distance, but I would never ask what's wrong with them.
And that's one that there'll be a bit of confusion about, Stephen, because it is a rule, or it's not that it's a rule, but one of the guidelines in ladies football that we don't stop for every injury. So you'll hear sometimes on the sideline mentors calling for stoppages for cramp or whatever, but it is play on unless it's a head injury, as you say, or a serious injury. So that's a little bit of a difference, and it's something I suppose a lot of mentors need to know as well. So yeah, that's a perfect one.
Just a comment come in there from Michael. I agree with the diagonal running, especially when play moves to right or left of your position.
Yeah, it's the quickest way to get from A to B with the best view.
Okay, so I think we're coming to an end. Vinny, I'd say we're nearly there.
Yeah,
so just to take this opportunity to thank everyone for logging in, and you'll see we have plenty more webinars coming up for match officials, for coaches, for referees, for players. So feel free to share and to log in on any of those. And just a massive thank you for Vinny tonight, who's been kept busy there with all the questions and comments and everything else. But most importantly, there to Stephen, who's come on to help us tonight. And I think you'll all agree it really helps when you have the experience of a referee who's been there in the middle of the pitch to do it. So thanks a million, Stephen, and I have no doubt people have learned plenty from your experience tonight. So a massive thank you to you. So that's us for tonight. This webinar will be uploaded onto our YouTube page, so you'll be able to watch it back if you need. But thanks to you all, stay safe and best of luck with it, with any upcoming games, which are more than likely in the new year at this stage. But stay safe is the main thing.